According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre. May she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Thomas Massie just did something no member of Congress has dared to do. He started reading out names connected to Jeffrey Epstein live on the record. But before we take that as courage or transparency, let's look closer at what he was really doing and what this moment says about power, politics, and distraction.
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. And we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment. So
is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of two different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th? And have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have
What you just watched was Congressman Thomas Massie pressing FBI Director Kash Patel about whether he's ever seen any CIA files on Jeffrey Epstein. At face value, that sounds like a fair question. Who wouldn't want to know if Epstein's crimes had deeper ties to intelligence agencies? The problem is the way the question is framed and what it conveniently leaves out. Massie starts by stacking up a list of media reports, articles, not official documents, linking Epstein to intelligence circles. It's a classic setup. Start with a pile of headlines to suggest smoke, and then demand to know why the FBI hasn't confirmed a fire. It sounds explosive, but it's strategically designed to make Patel look evasive, even if there's nothing new to disclose. Here's what's actually going on. In 2008, Epstein's sweetheart plea deal in Florida was handled under a non-prosecution agreement, a deal made by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, which has been widely criticized for being far too lenient. But Massie conveniently skips the institutional complexity. He implies that all federal agencies had access to the same set of unrestricted files, when in reality, different jurisdictions and offices were bound by different search warrants, subpoenas, and court orders. So when Patel says the constraints on investigations come from those original legal parameters, he's not dodging. He's describing a bureaucratic and legal reality. Federal agencies can't just go fishing in intelligence archives without court authority. That's not a cover-up. That's the rule of law. Now, that doesn't mean there's no reason to keep asking questions about Epstein's network. There absolutely is. The public deserves transparency about how a man accused of trafficking minors to the world's elite managed to escape real accountability for so long. But the responsible way to do that is through evidence-based oversight, not speculative insinuations. Massie claims victims named 20 men, including CEOs, royals, and billionaires, but offers no proof beyond secondhand claims that such names exist in FBI 302 documents. Those are interview summaries, not indictments or verified evidence. That distinction matters. An agent's notes from an interview are not the same as a court-verified finding. Yet this entire line of questioning deliberately blurs that line to make viewers feel that names are being hidden, when in reality, law enforcement can't legally release uncorroborated victim statements without violating privacy and due process. That's what Patel tries to explain when he says, "We're not in the practice of releasing victims' names or incredible information." In plain terms, the FBI can't publicly name alleged perpetrators based solely on unverified victim interviews. Doing that would actually undermine ongoing investigations and potentially re-traumatize survivors. So the real tension here isn't between the truth and the cover-up. It's between political performance and due process. One makes noise, the other takes time. And look at how Massie closes the exchange. He leaps from Epstein to January 6th pipe bombs to the Las Vegas shooting, all in the same breath. That's not about Epstein anymore. It's a rhetorical pivot designed to plant the idea that federal law enforcement is hiding everything from everyone, all the time. It's a way of collapsing distinct issues into one grand narrative of government distrust. And that's powerful politics, but it's terrible governance. This is the modern congressional playbook. Take a real outrage, like Epstein, and use it to inflame distrust in institutions that might otherwise hold your political allies accountable. You can see it happening across hearings. Shift the focus, blur the facts, frame oversight as resistance. It's the same pattern whether it's Hunter Biden's laptop, alleged deep state files, or Epstein's black book. But here's the uncomfortable truth that cuts through both sides' noise. America has never fully confronted how wealth and influence shield certain people from justice. That's not a partisan failure. That's a systemic one. Epstein's case is a mirror held up to the elite ecosystem where political donations, legal connections, and institutional hesitancy converge to protect the powerful. And if Congress genuinely wanted to expose that system, it would do the work, subpoena the right files, declassify responsibly, protect victims, and build airtight cases. What it shouldn't do is turn one of the darkest chapters in modern criminal history into a political stunt reel. When politicians ask why won't the FBI release all the Epstein files, remember, the files aren't just secrets, they're evidence, and evidence has rules. If you want real accountability, demand reforms to how plea deals are approved, how intelligence sharing works across agencies, and how elite criminal networks are investigated without interference. Because if the goal is justice, not just outrage, that's where the fight really is, in policy, not theater. If you want more breakdowns that go beyond the outrage and into the structure, into how these systems keep protecting the powerful, hit subscribe. Because we don't just replay the clips here, we decode what they mean and who benefits when truth gets replaced by spectacle. This is Liberal Lens. Stay informed, stay curious.